Okay.
Hello and welcome inside Fever Insider Live. Brian Haenchen, Chloe Peterson here with you. Chloe, we unexpectedly have a lot to talk about today.
Oh yeah, it's fun. It's funny because we invited our guest Jackie Powell on before everything happened here today. It was originally supposed to be at 11 a.m., but obviously Jackie needed some sleep. But I think it was good timing because we set this up a couple days ago, and maybe it was fate. Who knows?
The timing literally could not be any better. So Jackie from the Nine joining us now. She has been covering the CBA stuff like nobody else. Her, Alexa Philippou, Annie Constable, and Doug Feinberg. So the first question, Jackie, is how are you feeling? How are you recovering? Did you get some sleep before this? How are you hanging in there?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor, and it's really cool to see how everyone has been really supportive of the work that we were doing on the ground. And we said it to the players, we said it to people at the league. We were like, we had no idea that we had the power to be able to unite WNBA Twitter, and somehow we did, at least for a short period of time. So when it comes to how I'm doing, I'm still pretty tired. Bags under my eyes are there. I slept maybe for 4 hours this morning. So I slept from 8 a.m. to maybe like 12-ish. So maybe 4 plus. If this was just a one-night thing, that would be one thing. But the fact that my mean amount of sleep for the past week has been around 4 or 5 hours, it starts to weigh on you. The four of us kept thinking, like, God, how long can we keep doing this?
But at least it looked like you guys had some different good Samaritans there helping you guys out. I saw some of the food drop-offs, things like that. That was pretty cool.
We did, and I'm sure you saw the lawn chairs as well. I mean, we experienced the multiple seasons of New York in this 1 week period. I mean, for the people who aren't New Yorkers or from the Northeast, like, for instance, PA President Nneka Ogwumike, we spoke to her on Saturday, and she said, she was like, oh man, I feel like I've experienced all the seasons since I've been here. Because on that day, it was windy and cold and in the 40s after it was sunny and in the 70s. So we've been experiencing all the seasons. And to be quite honest, we've had to adapt our stakeout strategies in accordance with the seasons. So some folks might think, oh man, you guys were outside in in all these conditions for 8 days. That wasn't exactly how we did it. For the first 2 days when it was warm, yes, we had the lawn chairs, which were delivered on the street. That is a whole story, which if you want me to get into it, I can, but I don't have to. We had Dunkin' Donuts delivered. I had some iced and hot tea delivered because I'm not a coffee person. So Alexa Philippou referred to these folks as fairy godparents, essentially people we know around this space who felt for us and wanted to help us out. There were insomnia cookies, which were great. I'm trying to think what else. We had like shrimp cocktail at one point. Doug had a burger. There was like a cheese plate. I mean, for the first couple nights of this thing, we were being treated well. Then there was the Domino's on night 2, which the internet had an issue with. So that was sort of the first couple of days as we were getting into this. But then when it got colder, we were sort of a little bit more on our own. And what that amounted to was us sort of staking out in whatever hotel Alexa could get.
Shout out Alexa.
because she was the only non-New Yorker. And so we would just pile into one of her like 6 hotel rooms throughout this experience. Because whenever the location would switch, and it wasn't just at the Langham, it switched. Now I can say where it switched to. It was at the league office, then it was at the Players Association's headquarters. It kept switching back and forth before going back to the Langham. So we had to adjust. And at the league office, there is a nice lobby that's very spacious and is pretty conducive to a stakeout. At the PA, however, oh no, they do not have a great lobby for us to stake out. So one day we sat in Bryant Park. That was when it was sunny but cold. That was nice. Then some other days it was rainy and cold and wet. We sort of were like, okay, we're going to stay in Alexa Hotel X, and then we're going to bug people, then walk over, feel it out, be in the cold for maybe 20 minutes, and then walk back, because we were as exhausted as it was. And to make the living conditions even worse, we would have all gotten sick. And you know what? That could happen because our immune systems are all down. But anyway, that was a long rant to answer that first question.
Yeah. You've been through a lot. It's okay. Yeah. This is a safe space for you. It's okay.
So was a lot of it when you guys had to be inside? It was just you guys going back and forth and like checking it out for a little bit and then like seeing if they would come out, or?
Yeah, I mean, we had some sources that were inside that were giving us vibe checks, if that makes sense. Sometimes it would be on background, other times it would be off the record, and just to sort of give us an idea, broad ideas of what was going on there. So for instance, when there were reports yesterday about there not being any bargaining sessions, the 4 of us were like, that's not what we were told, and we're on the ground. So it just was also really interesting to sort of see how other people who weren't with us were trying to report on this. As we know, this business can be quite competitive, and so there's sometimes those tensions. But what was really cool was the 4 of us we were there for each other. And we sort of became like this dysfunctional family. There were moments late at night where we were just having junk food to stay awake. I think it was the night of Selection Sunday and the Oscars when we had no idea what was going on. And all of a sudden, last minute, Kathy Engelbert comes down the elevator bank, and we were like, what? Like we got no warning. Because sometimes when people would talk to us, we'd get a little warning of like, okay, like get ready, make sure you have your notebooks, you have your stuff, someone's going to come talk to you. No warning at all. She comes down the stairs. We were so punchy from eating all the junk and blasting all this music to try to stay up. Brianna Stewart heard us playing the music when she left one night, and she looked over and was like, are you guys okay?
I'm curious. You mentioned the competitive nature of our business. How did that work? Like, was it kind of figured out that you all had some of the same sources? Was it all different sources? You're getting the information at the same time for different spots. How did that kind of look from just, I guess, the journalism side of things?
That's a great question. I mean, obviously we know that it was Annie who broke the story, and, right as she was breaking it, the group was being called back over. So, she obviously had some very good relationships with other people that were in the room while it was happening or wherever they were. And, all the power to her. We were very proud of her just because, we've been working together for 8 days. But I mean, especially when we get exhausted and very tired, there's a tendency to maybe like, to question, like, am I working hard enough? Am I enough in this space? And those are some pretty toxic thought traps. So what was really cool was us all being able to like say, okay, like, we're in this together. Sure, some person might break this, someone might not, but we all bring value in different ways. And so I think that's sort of how we were able to move through this. Mind you, everything wasn't always sunshine and rainbows. You know, we were exhausted, we got cranky, but for the most part, we all got along very well. And when someone tried to, I don't know, like when people were not on site and reporting things, we all sort of got annoyed together, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know the first couple days, you know, your first day of the stakeout, you know, the players left through a side door. Nobody really wanted to talk after the first day. But just how did you see that change kind of over the 8 days or as they got closer to a deal with more people to talk to you?
Chloe, that's a great question. I think so. How some of them explained it to us was that they were not used to this. They were not prepared to do this. And, you know, they were in these meetings, their brains were being stretched, they were exhausted, and it came from a sense of, or a place of anxiety and fear. Like they didn't want to say the wrong thing. So what ended up happening was the PA realized the value that we were going to provide to this thing. And after that, you know, sneak out the back door evening, there were some changes made, especially when the four of us made sure to write about that and say, hey, this is what happened. And doesn't make the players look great. So I think they really reflected on it and they understood the value we had. And, you know, they really appreciated us. I mean, Brianna Turner was an absolute hoot. She took pictures of us.
I was going to ask about that too.
I was too.
So ask away.
What I don't even know. Just what was your reaction to? You posted that I think on Instagram or something, and it was just the four of you there.
So before she posted it, see, I'm getting punchy talking about it. Before she posted it, so on the next day, after the day when they avoided to talk to us, most of the players came down just to say hi and just to sort of take some accountability for leaving in the way that they did. And so when Brianna Turner came down, she wanted to show us the pictures that she took. She's like, oh, look, we were watching you guys. Here's the bird's eye view. And we were in hysterics. And so what then happened, oh, yeah, there's the photo. Looks beautiful. So then for the days after we saw it, when she showed it to us on her phone, we kept saying like, hey, we need to be sent this photo so we can have it as a keepsake. And then the next day we see that she put it on her Instagram story. And it wasn't the full photo either, because my hand is sort of sticking out. And so then I think maybe it was Alexa was finally able to nudge someone enough to give us the full photo. So we had it, and then we posted it ourselves on social media so everyone could see the full photo. But it was hysterical. I mean, it was hard to see because they were on the 3rd floor of the hotel and they had a great view of us out of their window. So they would like get up on the ledge, they'd look down, they'd see us. There was, I think, one union staffer that like kept waving to us. So it was hysterical. It truly was hysterical.
So I guess kind of now that this is all over, outside of the fact that there's obviously a CBA, you know, there's going to be a season, and that was kind of up in the air for a long time. Just what is, you know, do you feel, you know, a sense of catharsis in the sense you don't have to sit outside of the league office or the PA or a hotel anymore for 6 to 7 years?
Are you gonna miss it? Are you gonna like go back out there just to follow up quickly? If you want, while you're answering that, are you gonna find yourself like going out there maybe tonight just for old time's sake?
God. I mean, so here's how I'll answer both of those questions. I think we are all very excited to be able to sleep in our own beds at reasonable hours. I think we're all excited to be able to eat better. And I mean, I said on one podcast, I'm like, I'm so excited to go food shopping. I mean, who the hell says that? But I am. But when it comes to this idea of, am I going to go back? It's interesting because I thought about, again, just some of the relationships that we were all able to make on both sides in these past many days. You know, we met tons of people behind the scenes from the league side who were really cool people. And we were able to meet the staffers that brought the champagne to the hotel. And they sort of took us through that whole story. And so, you know, we were talking about, we have to like formally celebrate this thing because we've all just sort of been working together, not just the four of us, but, you know, some of the staff on both sides. You know, when it's all said and done, like we have a bond. We have a bond for life. I mean, one of the staffers was like, we have to do celebratory karaoke. And I said, that's an interesting idea. I made a playlist that I titled War is Over, and it has a bunch of songs. It has like Celebration by Kool and the Gang. It has Signed, Sealed, Delivered by Stevie Wonder. You know, it has the John Lennon War is Over song, although I have the Miley Cyrus cover because I like that one. So there's a, you know, there's a lot of like fun human to human bonding type stuff that I think we're going to miss. And hopefully there will be some time to celebrate. Although, as we know, God, the off-season calendar is going to be absolutely horrible.
That's the war is over thing is funny because I remember I woke up this morning and I saw that there was a CBA and I immediately went to text Tony East. He's also a fellow Fever reporter. I just texted him a gift that was like, war is over. I didn't even stake out. And I was like, I'm so excited.
I mean, you know, I feel like for us, there was a sense of anxiety about this because, you know, this is what we do. This is how we make our living. There was a lot of anxiety amongst many people around this league thinking like, if there's no season, like, what are we going to do? Yeah. So I get it. I really get it. And Tony is the best. I love that the two of you had that exchange.
He is a friend of the pod. He comes on pretty frequently. So, but yeah, I agree with you in the sense of like, obviously for the players, they didn't know if season was going to happen, but you know, for everyone who works in the WNBA, whether it's in the arenas, whether it's obviously reporters, what are we going to do if there's no season to cover? What are we going to cover? So
I'll ask broadly, Jackie, just your thoughts on the deal itself, or I'll just leave it open-ended with that and let you take whatever direction you'd like to take it. If you need something more specific, we can throw it to Chloe.
Yeah, you know, I think the thing is, since we don't know a ton, like we know some of those details, but we don't know the specifics behind them, which is why I'm a little reticent to provide the hottest take. But sure, this is what I will say. I think seeing the salary cap at $7 million, which essentially, if you think about, the league had it at like 5.67 for a while. Players had it at 9 or 10. And I was like, okay, what's the midpoint between those? And it's like around the 7 or 8 range. So I think what we're seeing in this deal is we're seeing compromise, which for so long seemed close to impossible. And I think that's because the thesis of this whole thing was the league wanted to provide players with a better livelihood as a result of being a WNBA player. That was very clear. But also at the same time, the ownership structure in the league is incredibly complex, and you still have owners that cry wolf about the WNBA losing money. So, and some of those folks are actual W owners who are not as wealthy as some other owners. But then you also have folks on the NBA side, in the 42% NBA side, where those folks don't own a WNBA team. You know, those folks cry wolf too, and those folks don't believe in the WNBA. So it's just, you have a lot of mouths to feed, and you have a lot of mouths to please. And so, you know, I mean, the players deserve to be given benefits and to be paid what they're worth. But at the same time, you know, the WNBA has gone through ebbs and flows. And I think all of us don't want the W to go through the ebbs that it did in like the late 2000s around the financial crisis, when teams just started folding, when NBA owners just started not caring anymore. And, you know, it put the league and it put its perception in a huge hole. And so I think this deal and the legitimacy of it, and the fact that players are being treated like professionals in a meaningful way, I think that's going to trickle to the narratives around this league. You know, Nneka Ogwumike said it last night at 3:30 a.m. or whatever. She was like, I think what I'm most excited about is the fact that, you know, players, I'm trying to remember how she put it. I just want to get this right. I wrote it in a column that's now on the 9 Sports, but essentially what she said was, I'm really excited about players coming into this league for the first time and not having a sense of lack. And so what she means by that is there are these narratives about, oh man, you know, when players are in college, they get treated so much better. And then they get to the WNBA and, you know, the conditions are so much worse, yet you're a professional. Like, it made no sense. No sense. So here we're going to be in a situation where that tide is going to be turned. And the cloud of the WNBA, it being the most competitive professional league in the world, you know, it will have earned some of that clout, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. And obviously there are a lot of things unanswered about the CBA as well. You know, there has been reported about different like core designations and how that would change. There was a proposed, I think, rookie scale contract change where rookies could sign max extension if they made all WNBA, or a supermax if they made MVP. You know, what the housing is like and everything like that is still unknown. But you know, I've heard that there will be a term sheet obviously coming in the next couple of days, and I think you've heard that as well. So I think there will be a lot more of the questions we have answered in the next couple of days.
Absolutely. And I would also just say, you know, to the fans listening and watching, hang tight. This is going to become a lot clearer. Also, when the CBA itself comes out, like, you can get all your questions answered. It may be a little bit hard to understand, but it's all going to be in one very long document.
I had such a time reading the CBA last year, trying to learn about emergency hardship contracts.
Ooh, Chloe, I hope that the hardship system will be either gone or less used. That is the largest headache ever. And it was cool because Terry Carmichael Jackson, the executive director of the PA, she said something really interesting that really acknowledged the developmental players, which I think has been an under-discussed part of this whole thing. So she said last night, she said, the leadership team stood in the shoes of 1 through 12 plus 2 and took their experiences into account. So that +2 refers to the 2 new player development players that, when someone gets hurt, they can sort of be activated. At least that's my understanding of it. There will be a limit on how many games they can participate in, and they might not all travel. But I mean, that's a big jump from hardship players. Oh my God.
Yeah, that seems similar to what the NBA does in the G League. Obviously without G League for them to participate in, but I know the Pacers are going through that right now because they have like 15 games left and they have a ton of injuries, and they have guys who only have like 9 more games of eligibility on a 2-way contract. So, but that's beside the point. Is there anything else you would like to add, Jackie, before we let you go back to resting after your 8 days of marathon staking out?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the one note that I'd like to end on is just this idea of, we're witnessing women's sports history. And I think I want everyone who is listening, everyone who's been following this, to really stop and take a deep breath and think about that for a moment. And just, when we talk about women's sports history before we were alive, one of the first names that comes to my mind is Billie Jean King, right? And so I just think about, how is this moment going to be remembered? And, are we moving into a period where women's sports history is told in a more robust way? I mean, that's why we're doing this, right? We want to sort of make sure that it's not just, about one person who did this one thing. We want to know about as many people as we can and the impacts they make in these spaces.
Well, Jackie, thank you so much for jumping on with us. Tip of the cap again on the work that you guys did on the ground there in New York. Phenomenal stuff. And dear God, get some rest, you poor woman.
Thank you both for having me. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Take care. Jackie Powell of the IX with us here on Fever Insider Live. Chloe, it's good to be back with you.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give us a proper reset. I'm glad to be back. It's fun doing this. Season 2, I think, is now officially underway. Where do you want to start things?
We didn't really talk much about the timeline, I guess, with Jackie. But there is a proposed timeline of what's going to happen in the condensed, I don't even know how long it is. I guess that's technically going to be a 3-week off season for the WNBA. And all of these dates are subject to change, obviously, because the league gave this timeline to teams, GMs, based on a March 10th term sheet that they would have agreed to a term sheet by March 10th. Obviously, it is March 18th. They don't even have a term sheet yet. That's going to come, tomorrow, later this week, pretty soon. But these could change. I don't know how much they can change without actually delaying the season, though. So they might just condense this all and try to get the CBA ratified, signed by players and owners by March 31st, as these dates, specify. So basically, this plan hinges on the CBA being fully ratified by March 31st. And then between April 1st and April 6th, everything will happen with the expansion draft, in the sense, the teams will send their protected lists probably on April 1st or 2nd. And then they are going to have the expansion draft by April 6th. They're trying to avoid going in between or competing with the women's college basketball Final Four, which is why they picked the 6th as a date, the day after the championship. And I guess kind of just going into the expansion draft a little bit, we still don't know, or it's still not public, what the specific terms of the expansion draft are going to be, because those are governed by the CBA. The general consensus is that existing teams are going to be able to protect 5 players, because that is what happened the last time there was a multi-team expansion draft, which was back in 2000 when the Fever came into the league. So the consensus is they will be able to draft 5 players. That's down 1 from the 6 that they were able to protect last year when the Golden State came into the league. And that brings us into who are the Fever going to protect. And I think the first 3 are obvious, and Caitlin Clark, Aliyah Boston, Michaela Timpson. Those are the 3 players they have under contract. And then Lexi Hull is a restricted free agent. And obviously, we haven't heard much about the state of restricted free agency and the new collective bargaining agreement. So my guess is it would likely be similar to what it is now. But the big change is going to be the core designation, which I see someone asked about it in the comments already. But basically, there's been some reporting about the core designation. Annie Costable reported that the core designation is going to change to the sense that players with under 6 years of service will no longer be eligible for the core. But she said that it will not take effect until 2027. So in that case, Kelsey Mitchell would still be eligible for the core in 2026 because she has 8 years of service, but obviously, the rule doesn't go into effect until 2027. So in that case, the Fever could still core her. And I think at this point, though, the term sheet isn't signed. Things are still fluid. Things could still change. So we won't know anything for certain until there's a term sheet. So at this point, I would think with the information, we have, the Fever would likely protect Kelsey Mitchell and attempt to core her. The thing is, too, if Kelsey Mitchell is not eligible to be cored, they may just not have many other people who contributed, heavily to the Fever to core, which is in ways a good thing because then they're not going to be taking out anything, or they're not going to be, have to give up anything that they, have in a sense, because a bunch of the other players on the Fever's roster in 2025 were unrestricted free agents. And, Natasha Howard has exhausted her core eligibility, even under the old CBA. Sydney Colson was not really a candidate to be cored. I'm not sure of her status for the season, considering she tore her ACL in August of last year. They could hypothetically protect Sophie Cunningham in that case, but actually, no, they in that sense, if the rule does go into effect this year, if Kelsey Mitchell isn't eligible, neither is Sophie Cunningham, because Sophie has over 6 years of experience. So basically, the moral of the story is we don't know much about the core designation. We know it's changing. We don't know when. So it would be good for the Fever. They're probably hoping for it to not go into effect until 2027. And I think that would, assuming that is correct, that wouldn't be surprising for me, because obviously the Fever have been preparing, to core Kelsey Mitchell. Mm-hmm. And there are a bunch of other teams that are likely coring, like the Storm. We're probably preparing to core Gabby Williams, the Liberty. Actually, Sabrina Ionescu would have been eligible either way, but like Alyssa Thomas too. Like it would be kind of like a rug pulled out from under a lot of the teams. 51 days to the season and 4 weeks to training camp if they're suddenly not able to core the players they were, they thought they could core for the entire offseason. So I guess we will see when the term sheet comes out about that. If what is going to happen for sure.
What do you think of the numbers on the deal? I mean, obviously they're just reported right now. We talked about they're going to be ratified. Were they about in line with what you would have expected or were expecting?
I think so. I mean, it's obviously a $7 million salary cap. That's over 4 times the $1.5 million they had last year or in 2025. the Supermax is basically starting at what the salary cap was. So that's going to be a large payday for some of the top players in the league. And I know Aces reporter Callie Finn, she reported that the Aces are already planning to sign Asia Wilson to that Supermax. So, I mean, I think those are about in line in what I expected. Obviously, as Jackie mentioned earlier, the league started at 5.5, the players started at 9.5. So this is essentially in the middle, and essentially, I think as much as each side was willing to compromise, obviously.
That's going to be a really fun month of April for you.
Oh, yeah. I'm super excited. But obviously, as we go into it, more into the key dates, qualifying offers, that would be for the Fever. That would be, Kelsey, I was about to say Kelsey Hull, Kelsey Mitchell, if she's eligible for the core, and then Lexi Hull for restricted qualifying offer. And then between April 9th and 11th, they can negotiate with free agents, and then free agents can start signing on April 12th, which is one day before the draft or the collegiate draft. And then less than a week later, training camp starts. So it's going to be an interesting month, I think, for players too, because obviously a lot of them, all but two veterans, are free agents this offseason because they were anticipating this huge payday they're now going to get. But I think with how condensed this offseason is, and, a lot of other people have said this as well, I think a lot of players are going to opt to stay where they are, assuming, the team is willing to pay them, what they think is a reasonable amount of money, just because obviously it's going to be really tough to get a good sense of what, a new franchise could do for you in less than a week. And obviously every franchise is going to be scrambling to sign people. So I think, if anything, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of one-year deals again this year, just because players are going to say we want to stay where we're at. Mm-hmm. And then you have a full free agency next year to really talk to teams, really get the sense with teams and see what's going to go down. You don't have to make hasty decisions like you likely would have to this year.
Sure. Before we get to the World Cup stuff, I think we might as well just address some of the questions in here. I'm sure you're seeing them too. Mm-hmm. Just give me a shout if you see any. I'm going to just start going down the line here and we'll pluck specific questions. I like the positivity that's in the chat. That's new and a nice way to start the year. How will the core designation? I feel like you addressed this a little bit. If they can core Kelsey, can they afford? That's an interesting last one. Do you think they can afford to keep all four there as RFAs?
That would be interesting because what I've seen reported is that the rookie salaries are obviously going to grow with the new CBA. I think the last CBA, they didn't, which kind of shafted the rookies in that case. But this year, and obviously none of this is confirmed until there's a term sheet that comes out. But I think this year, assuming they keep Aliyah Boston on the rookie scale contract, because I guess another thing was something proposed from the WNBA to the league was that rookies who made all W teams throughout the first 3 years in the WNBA could hypothetically be eligible for a max. I'm not sure if that's going to go into effect this year. It could be something similar to possibly the core designation changing, and both of those go into effect in 2027. Because obviously, if Aliyah Boston would be eligible for a max extension in 2026, that would change a lot of what the Fever are trying to do. But in the sense of both Caitlin Clark, Aliyah Boston are on their rookie scales, and then Kelsey Mitchell has a supermax possibly, and Lexi Hull would have restricted free agent, probably middle of the pack money. I think they could afford all of them this year at the very least. I think next year is when it starts to get, dicey, because then Kelsey would obviously still command. She wouldn't, or I don't know how the eligibility for the Supermax changes, but she would still command top money. Then Aliyah Boston would be out of her rookie contract. So a lot of that would change.
Will the Fever be able to afford 2 max players with the new CBA salary cap?
Well, that's a good question that we also don't have the answer to, because before, in this prior CBA, only 1 player per team was eligible for the Supermax, which is 1.4. We don't know if that changes in the new CBA. I would think, 1 player eligible for the Supermax, and then you can have multiple players on the max, which is what happened in the old CBA. In that case, you could afford 1 player on the Supermax, 1 player on the max, which I'm not entirely sure what the max is either. Probably around 1 million, I would guess. But that's just me guessing. Hypothetically, they probably could. There were teams that did it under the old salary cap. Obviously, the Mercury had 3 players making over $200,000 last year. And they had 3 players making over $200,000 in Alyssa Thomas, Satu Sabali, Kalia Copper. And then there were a lot of players on pretty minimum contracts, but they made it to the finals and it worked. So I guess we can see.
Yeah. We got a past CBA question with regard to restricted free agents. In past years, if an RFA is offered more money by a different team, can they still choose to play with the team with their rights for less? Or would the team with the rights to that player have to match the offer? They have to match the qualifying offer, right?
Well, technically, yes, but the player doesn't have to accept the qualifying offer from a different team, technically. So, like, in the case of Lexi Hull, she'll be a restricted free agent, and say, hypothetically, the Fever can only offer her, $400,000. She doesn't even have to negotiate with other teams if she doesn't want to.
She can just accept the qualifying offer.
She can just accept the offer the Fever give her. What would be the Fever needing to match it is if, Lexi goes out to, hypothetically Toronto, and Toronto's like, we're going to offer you $500,000, and, they have an offer sheet that they both sign. In that case, that would be Lexi Hull making her intentions clear that if the Fever don't match that, she would leave. Mm-hmm. So then the Fever would have to match it. But she also doesn't have to go out and do it. Like, if she's happy in Indiana, which she has said multiple times that she is happy in Indiana, she bought a house here, she doesn't have to go through that, and she can just negotiate with the Fever.
So teams can't mess with another team's salary cap, say, because they know that the Fever are up against it. They can't throw a bunch of money at Lexi, force the Fever to match it because they want to keep her. Lexi Hull can say, I'm good. We're going to stay here.
Now, Lexi Hull would have to agree to the offer. They can't just be like, we're going to take her from you.
Deal. Yeah, which opens another sort of Pandora's box. We can get to at another date. Let's see here. There's a question about WNBA rookies, which I feel like is a good one for later in the season or later when we have an idea of that. Same thing with, I guess, do you want to touch the free agency opportunities and targets or save that one for another show?
Save that one.
See what type of players they need from college. That's a fair question. How will teams know what type of player they need to draft from college if they haven't made all their free agency moves?
That's a good question. I think that's a question a lot of the teams are asking themselves as well. I think, obviously, as I said, I think a lot of the free agents are going to return to the teams they were on in 2025. So, teams obviously don't know anything for sure, but they can have a good sense of, if they think someone's going to come back. Like, obviously, Asia Wilson can't sign her Supermax contract until, April 9th, but the Aces know she's going to come back. Right. So I think that's the case with a lot of teams that, they will have a sense of who they can, at least with the players that were on their teams in 2025, they'll know who will want to come back. And I think they'll use that in deciding who they want to pick. And I think obviously with the top picks, like that's obvious. If you have a top pick like this, the Dallas Wings, can't really go wrong. I guess the Dallas Wings could go wrong. They can have to choose between AZ Fudd and Abba Fam. But basically, that is a good question. I don't know if the teams know the answer to that question.
Question about the WNBA draft. They have the 10th overall pick in this year's draft.
Yes.
I just looked it up. 15-team first round. People will be picking at number 10.
They could hypothetically trade that away. I guess trades are going to happen too. Who knows?
You're going to get wheeling and dealing. You're going to try and take some time off.
Many teams have assets to trade at this point because everyone's a free agent.
Everybody's a free agent. God, it's going to be amazing. It's just going to be like the starting gun's going to go, and it's probably going to be you and me both tag teaming some of this stuff.
Oh,
it's going to be, I feel like, all at once happening, which is going to be just incredibly fun times. That's all the questions for now. Keep popping them in the chat. We'll do what we always do. We'll
developmental spots.
You want to do that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Didn't they propose to have 2 developmental spots for each team as well? How will that look this season? Sorry, Chloe, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Well, I was just going to say, Jackie kind of talked about this when she was on. And obviously, once again, we don't know anything until there's a term sheet, which will come tomorrow, this week, sometime. But they did propose that. And the way, Jackie was saying it would work would be kind of like an NBA G League 2-way, from my understanding of it, is they would practice with the team but they wouldn't, I don't know, officially be on the roster, on the active roster. But in the case of a player getting injured, that developmental roster player could be activated. But there would be a set number of games that they could be activated for. Obviously not the entire season, but we don't know what the numbers look like for that too. So that's what's going on with the developmental spots. And we don't know, obviously, the specifics of how they're going to look this season, but we will know more some other time. Maybe next week.
There's the low market team and the struggle with the new cap thing. We can touch on that maybe after the Kate and Clark, unless you want to hit them now.
Well, I think they're both together. I mean, I think relatively the cap is still a hard cap from my understanding. So the cap is, relatively low compared to the NBA, obviously. Like Tyrese Halliburton's making $45 million this year.
So that would be over the cap per my
math. So the entire team salary cap for the Indiana Fever is, 6 times less than what Tyrese Halliburton himself is making this year.
Good math.
So I think most teams won't have a problem with hitting that cap. I think what would have been more of an issue with a low market team would be if they instituted a soft cap like the NBA has, where you have the salary cap and then you have the luxury tax and then you have, tiers that technically there's a salary cap, but you can keep going above and above and above it. So I don't think WNBA teams will have an issue with the cap as, NBA teams do, in the sense of being a low market team.
You were in Puerto Rico.
I was in Puerto Rico.
Let's talk a little basketball. Team USA goes 5-0 in the qualifying round. Caitlin Clark named MVP. You got to watch some basketball. She didn't start many games. People were losing their minds. You had some smart-ass tweets. I enjoyed those the most. But what did you enjoy the most about Puerto Rico on the basketball side of things?
Well, it was just really fun to see Caitlin Clark obviously play basketball again, because she hadn't played, a real live game since July of 2025, in Boston specifically. And she talked about, the days leading up to it, how excited she was to just play the game again. I think after their opening game against Senegal, she was just like, I'm excited that I'm sweaty right now, and I got to play on the court.
That's cool.
So I think the overarching thing was just how excited she was to play and, to make her debut on the senior national team. Obviously, she didn't make the Olympic team in 2024, so this was her first opportunity to play true games on the senior national team. So that was a big moment for her career in, a lifelong goal, years-long goal, or goal she was working toward for years. And then obviously the more recent goal of just getting back on the court and playing healthy. So that was the two main things.
The big question I'm sure everybody wants to know, and I'm also curious, how did she look?
And she looked good. I think she talked about after the first game, she had to suck some air for a little while because and that's just, conditioning thing where she talked a lot about how there's no substitute for real game action. Like obviously she has people she can play 5-on-5 against. It's, former college basketball players, other people they find who have basketball experience and can play. But it's never going to fully imitate an experience like playing a live court game. So I think that a lot of it was more conditioning than, basketball skills. But obviously she returned to form really quickly. It was 17 points, 12 assists, her first game back against Senegal. And she worked really well and she fit in really quickly, especially with Ryan Howard and Monique Billings. And they just had a connection really early. And there was one assist in their last game against Spain where she was under Spain's basket and she just chucked it to Paige Beckers, who is at the opposite 3-point line. And I think that's just awesome. That's just what she does. And I think, she did not change who she was or how she played. And obviously she was named MVP, so it was working well for her.
Mm-hmm. And the fact, too, that you can bring a player, and obviously they're doing a lot of lineup shuffling, but the fact you have the luxury of bringing a player like that off the bench, I know people are pissed about it, whatever. I mean, that just speaks to the talent on the roster. Like, it's crazy. Were any of those games at all competitive? I mean, they were stretches, but were any? What would you say was the most competitive one, I guess, a better way to ask that?
I mean, this was after I left. It was the game on Tuesday against Spain was, I think, the most competitive one. And, I mean, I think they were expecting that one to be the most competitive one. They have the potential number 1 pick in this draft on that team in Awa Pham. They also have Megan Gustafson, a WNBA player, on that team. And Spain is a very good team. Obviously, I don't remember the exact final score, but it was a double-digit win for Team USA. But it was the team, I think, that gave them the most run for their money outside of France in the Olympics.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Speaking of Team USA, a player who wasn't there, Aliyah Boston, do you have any updates? Have you heard anything on her injury? And I guess you just catch up the people who maybe aren't as caught up on that.
I have not. I talked to Stephanie White while we were in Puerto Rico. Stephanie White's an assistant on Team USA staff. She didn't give me any specifics about the injury, but she just talked about how Aliyah is back in Indianapolis. She's doing well. She's in high spirits, obviously disappointed to not make or to not be able to go to Puerto Rico after she was named to the Team USA roster. But she's working to get back on the court. And, Aliyah also has posted a couple times from the Fever facility. She's not wearing any noticeable brace on her knee or ankle or anything like that from what I've been able to see. And I guess something on top of that too is obviously we have the World Cup coming up September, and I don't think, I'm trying to think of how to word this, like Aliyah Boston not being on the qualifier team shouldn't have much bearing on whether she's on the World Cup team or not. Obviously, they're going to there are a lot of players that weren't on this World Cup qualifying team, like Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, Nafisa Collier, to name a few, that are likely going to be on this World Cup team. So some players on the qualifier team are not going to make the World Cup team. But I think, Aliyah Boston has a lot of senior national team experience. She was on the World Cup qualifiers, I believe, or she was on the Olympic qualifying team in 2024, did not ultimately make the Olympic team, but she's participated in a lot of senior national team camps. She's participated in multiple tournaments. So, yeah.
Any other big takeaways from your trip down south?
I mean, obviously, as you've said multiple times, I would not take any stock in whether Caitlin Clark started games or not, or how much she played. The first 2 games that I was there for were them just testing out lineups like crazy. They would go 5 in, 5 out, and they would do one specific lineup in the first half, and then they would do another specific lineup in the second half, and they were not changing that no matter how good or bad those lineups were looking.
Yeah.
So I think, it was, as USA basketball head coach Kara Lawson called it, a fact-finding mission.
Mm-hmm.
And I think games 3 through 5 became more of like, they figured out which lineups work in the first 2 games and which lineups don't work. So then they were going into more of like an actual rotation. And how do rotations work, and what teams or what players can rotate in, rotate out at what times. And I think in the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things, none of these games mattered. The USA already qualified for the 2026 World Cup by way of their 2025 AmeriCup win. So these games were really like truly scrimmages. And they could have lost all 5 and still been in the World Cup. And obviously it's Team USA, so they weren't going to do that. But yeah, it was truly a fact-finding mission for Team USA. And I think whether Caitlin Clark started or not, or, however many minutes she got, I think she ended up leading the team in minutes. I think she had like 108 minutes over the 5 games. And then the next highest was Kelsey Plum with 102 minutes. Clark ended up leading them in total points with 58 and total assists with 32. So, yeah, she came off the bench for 4 games, but she still led the team in minutes, points, and assists.
I think the other thing that people really want to know about is your trip personally, the things that you saw, especially after, I think LA, what was it? You went from the hotel to Chipotle, back up to your hotel room to watch the Samurai Turn Pretty, which, riveting and really can be a full LA experience. So tell us about your trip.
Well, you'll be happy to know that I didn't get Chipotle at all on this trip. I don't even know if there's Chipotle in San Juan. But the thing is, my go-to when I'm on the road and like I fly in and I'm like, I need something to eat, but I don't know what I want. I'm just like, you know what never goes wrong for me? A Chipotle quesadilla. So I get a Chipotle quesadilla almost everywhere. I did not get it in San Juan. But
did that ruin the trip for you?
No, I did think about getting a Chipotle quesadilla, but I didn't. I went to somewhere local. But the trip was a good time. I went to a fortress on the second to last day I was there when USA had an 8 p.m. game. It was the site of the Wizards of Waverly Place movie, or one of the sites, I should say. So that was fun. Learned a lot about the history of Puerto Rico. Walked around Old San Juan. Went to the beach for a little bit, but then left the beach because I didn't like the sand. But yeah, my trip was good. I had about 45 minutes of sleep between Thursday night's game and Friday, my early morning Friday flight, because I didn't think about that when I booked my flights. So I left at 7 a.m. on Friday morning after an 8 p.m. game on Thursday night. So
fun. There was nothing better than waking up in the middle of the night and looking down at my phone, and there's Chloe. She's like, I'm going to get a couple hours of sleep. Maybe I got to go to the airport here soon. And it's like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, whatever it was.
Well, I psyched myself out because all I saw after I got to San Juan was like, the TSA lines are crazy. They shut down one of the TSA terminals, or they shut down one of the TSA checkpoints in San Juan. So everyone was being funneled through one checkpoint. And then you also have to go through an agriculture check. So I psyched myself out and got to the airport like 3.5 hours early. And then I got through TSA in an hour. And I sat there for like 2 hours. So
It's fun. Well, it's better safe than sorry because there are
Exactly.
travel issues everywhere. I saw some of that, like they're shutting down hallways and whatnot. Let's see here. Any other last minute questions, folks? Drop them in now. We'll be doing these shows more regularly as the season gets going. Chloe and I have been discussing and are plotting and planning our plans for the season, and we'll share those with you when they're finalized. Let's see here. Were you surprised that Caitlin Clark won MVP, especially coming off the bench? That's an interesting question. Were you surprised?
I was not, because I think if you look at the final box score of Team USA, there was nobody that played more than like 22 minutes a game. So that was just how they were doing the tournament. Like Chelsea Gray started all 5 games, but she played fewer minutes than Caitlin Clark at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in terms of, obviously Team USA was the best team there. And Caitlin Clark played the most minutes. She had the most points. She had the most assists. So, and she obviously had a 12 assist game, I think an 8 assist game, a 7 assist game. She had multiple high assist games. So I was not surprised, especially just because they were so, they divided up the time very equally to that point.
In Puerto Rico, it seems strange they often played Caitlin Clark with Chelsea Gray. Seems strange they have 2 point guards on the same time.
Yeah, they did play her a good amount with Chelsea Gray, but I think a lot of that is, teaching, or not necessarily teaching, but like them getting to play multiple positions. The Team USA qualifiers roster was extremely guard heavy, especially after Aliyah Boston had to pull out.
Mm-hmm.
They did not have a true center on that team. But I think it was super guard heavy. So they wanted to get the guards, comfortable playing, playing the one, or playing, or in Caitlin's case, playing off the ball, and Chelsea Gray bringing the ball up the court. And there were times where Caitlin was bringing the ball up the court and Chelsea Gray was, she was playing off the ball. So I think a lot of it is just.
It's just.
Anyway, a lot of it is.
Handled it beautifully, delicately too.
A lot of it is just them learning how to, or them getting the chance to play a new position, especially, it was something Kara Lawson said on at one of her post games too, that a lot of these players on this team, they're the number 1 or number 2 option on their WNBA team. So they come to Team USA, they are no longer the number 1 or number 2 option. So you just have to learn how to play within a team full of stars, and that's just what they were trying to do.
I just enjoy the positivity that we're getting in the comments today. I think it was amazing for Caitlin Clark to play with Gray. If Caitlin Clark gets 1% better off ball, they can use Aliyah Boston's playmaking more on the Fever. See, that's the type of positivity we need to cultivate this year, and the good insight too.
Yeah, I agree with that, because playing off the ball can only help Caitlin Clark as a basketball player, in my opinion. Like, obviously, her natural position is point guard. But I think getting more reps off the ball just makes her more versatile as a player. And it's something that Stephanie White has talked about this past season. And, Christy Side said in 2024, just that getting Caitlin to play off the ball, it keeps her on the court, but she's not, it's not as stressful for her body. So getting her some off the ball reps, will allow her to stay on the court and allow the Fever to use her, but then she doesn't get as tired, trying to run the offense, for 40 minutes.
A couple more here. How was the personal chemistry off the court? I don't know, how much did you see them off court? Like, anything at all?
A little bit. I think, she had a lot of, time with Kelsey Plum. Her and Kelsey Plum and Paige Beckers were like, they were all broken up into 4 groups of 3. And Caitlin's group was Kelsey Plum and Paige Beckers. And I think a lot of them, they had a lot of really good chemistry. And obviously, Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers go way back to, U14, U15 junior national team. So think a lot of them have known each other for a long time, but, and a lot of these tournaments too are them learning each other, off the court too.
Yeah. Let's see, who played small forward rather than guard other than Caitlin Clark?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I think a lot, I'm telling you, a lot of Team USA is, as I said, as Kara Lawson coined, a lot of these players were the number one option on their teams. Coming to Team USA, yeah. So a lot of these players were the number one options on their team. They come to Team USA. They're no longer the number one option. And I think, obviously, they tried out lineups. I think there was a lineup once where it was Chelsea Gray, Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers, Jackie Young. Wow. Who's playing the 4 in that lineup? I don't know. Yeah. But
oh my God, what a lineup.
Playing the 4 in that lineup. So that's the answer to your question. But they were testing out lineups.
I see. Here's the follow-up. He says, I heard you saying that Minnie had to change position, so who? So it was just kind of shuffling. It wasn't anything like consistent.
Yeah,
right?
No one changed positions officially. They were just
trying things out.
Yeah, that's what this whole qualifying tournament is.
Yeah. Anything else, Chloe, you want to touch on before we call it a night? You run down the train?
I don't think so. The train left.
Oh, it's too bad.
So Kat also left to go look at the train. He loves to look at the trains. So
I love that. Real quickly, all right, last one. We're going to end it with this one because Chloe and I both want to get on with our lives. And again, we'll be doing one of these again soon. Do you think Natasha Howard is going to be back? Gut reaction.
That's a good question. My gut would say, it's hard because in a regular WNBA offseason timeline, I would say likely not. But everything is so condensed this year that teams are going to be scrambling, players are going to be scrambling, just to find a spot and just to get things situated. And I think familiarity is going to go a long way in those ways. So I think, they could do with, a more, I don't know, like a rim runner kind of stretch 4, but I'm not sure how much flexibility they will have with a 3-week off season, essentially.
Sure. Well, Chloe, that's show 1 of the 2026 season. We did it.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure as always. Anything Fever related that you have coming up this week? I know that you have today. What does this all mean for them? Some really good stuff and reporting on that.
Yeah.
What else should folks be looking for?
Well, obviously, whenever the term sheet comes out, we will have a lot more answers on how this new CBA will affect the Fever, when it comes to, obviously, the core designation. If that officially changes, when it will start, the rookie scale changes, how that would affect, obviously, Aliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark next year for Clark. And then just as the information comes out with the CBA term sheet, and then that's what I have going on. I'm at the mercy of the term sheet. Check back.
There's probably some smart-ass comment here about hardcore players, but I can't. I'll come up with it and I'll lead off the next show with it. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's great to be back. We appreciate all of you guys for watching, chiming in the comments. Stay tuned to Chloe's and my Twitter. We'll be again live, I'm sure, here in the next 2 weeks, I would say, especially with everything going on with the off-season kids. I don't expect that we're going to go too long between shows and to kind of get into this weekly rhythm again. But again, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will talk to you again soon.